Hi everybody! We are out here on a lovely December afternoon and we are working on enhancing one of the brush piles that Steve created early on. This is that corner that we're still working on quite a bit with invasive plants, but it's starting to have a lot more native plants, and it's still a beloved corner by birds and small mammals and deer. And so this brush pile is definitely, no doubt, attractive to a lot of the small animals and birds. It provides them cover for escaping from predators and for escaping the weather. And I don't know, it just looks kind of cozy, doesn't it? I mean, if I was living out here, I'd probably want to be in that brush pile. And so there's a good foundation under the brush pile that's there, some big logs, and we have some cement blocks that were here. I don't know, it seems like every house we buy always has a bunch of cement blocks. So really heavy things that you go, what do we do with these? And so Steve thought, well, since we're making this one bigger, why don't we put them as the foundation for this enhanced part of the pile, and we're not throwing them away, we're not having to haul them too far, and then it provides a really nice escape route. So he's doing the heavy lifting right here. And he's been reading a lot about this stuff, and I think it's called rabbitat, so creating a lot of habitat for rabbits. We have a ton of rabbits here, which are really cool. And yes, we deal with them in the garden, but overall, they're just a really neat part of an ecosystem and also super important. And so we want to encourage them. And so rabbitat helps create habitat for rabbits. Steve, what else you got to say?
Well, first of all, this wasn't our idea. We were just researching how to do brush piles, because it was like, well, when I grew up, you just throw stuff in a pile, which makes sense. But then we found out there's definitely some techniques to do a better pile, including a base where it's kind of more permanent, where critters can escape, and then have bigger stuff like a layer cake, bigger stuff like logs on the bottom, and small, and then you get what I say. It's stack things progressively smaller as you go up the pile, and that creates a lot of different habitat niches and stuff. And then also people take like pieces of tile you can use, like old clay tile that people used to use for drainage, and you can use those for escape routes. So anyway, you just do stuff underneath so rabbits can escape if they're getting chased by a fox or a cat or a dog. Once they get in these bricks, nobody can get them.
And what about maybe even a fox would make a den in here?
Yeah, exactly. So who knows, but
it could be anybody.
It could be anything. Mink, we have mink here. But the main thing is creating space, like escape space or habitat space for small critters. And so it's pretty easy to do, and as we do some of our stewardship work, we have invasive plants that we've cut, and then we can just keep throwing in an area that accumulates and creates this habitat. We also spread it around sometimes so it can help improve the soil conditions, but it's good to also have these rabbitat piles. So when this is done, you won't even see the cement blocks. This will just be a humongous igloo looking brush pile, and maybe be like taller, maybe as tall as a person, and probably like 6 or 8 feet wide on each side, so pretty big. And but we have continuous supplies of woody material because we have some woods, but then we don't want our whole property to become wood, so we're continuously cutting woody plants that continuously want to reproduce. This area wants to be woods, and so we're going to have to continue to thin, and so we'll just have rabbitat piles placed periodically so that we can easily pile brush on them.
And when we're thinning, are we creating big lawn spaces?
No, we are creating what you could call it prairie, you could call it oil field, you could call it meadow, you could call it savanna, but we're basically thickets. We call it thickets because we're just looking for retaining some sun that can hit the ground so that we can have understory plants. And then so basically widely spaced trees with meadow in between them.
That
So
sounds pretty
the
cool.
savanna restorers use 30% canopy cover as an index for savanna, which would be grassland with scattered trees. But we also want to do thicket species like persimmon and other native shrubs. And so we like to call it thicket versus savanna, because you can have thicket would encompass trees, native shrubs, and your grassland, old field understory.
Okay, cool. Well, it's pretty fun living here, y'all, because this stuff really does encourage a lot of wildlife.
And
So
it keeps you out of the bars.
it keeps you out of the bars.